want to talk to you about the very subject that brings us together, and that is the word sociology, sociology, and it's hard to get all those syllables in. I want to talk to you about sociology. And I know many of you have had other experiences with sociology or with the other social sciences. And in fact, this gives me an opportunity to learn something from you. So I would like to know, first of all, how many of you are new to NYU this term? Raise your hand. Oh, okay, a good number. Thank you. How many of you are in your first year of any university? Raise your hand. Wow, okay, great, thank you. So we have a room of young people, it's safe to assume. And again, a hearty welcome. I don't really remember when I was in your situation, but I have some photographs, which maybe I'll share at some point during this semester and pass it along. How many of you have had another sociology class somewhere in the world? A couple of you. And how about anthropology? A handful. And economics. And political science. And psychology. Okay, thanks so much. History. All right. I saw a lot of hands go up for quite a number of those disciplines when I asked about it. I could have asked about others like geography and planning. And what's interesting for the present purpose is that sociology includes, touches on, borders, all of those fields. And you will see that as the semester goes on, that sociology has a kind of its own space, but it is adjacent to all of those other spaces. And in fact, many fields, like communications, for example, emerged out of sociology. The field of demography, the study of population, was born out of sociology. Studies of various versions of history were born out of sociology. And in fact, one of the great sociological thinkers, a founder of the discipline, sometimes a French theorist whose name was Auguste Comte. Whoops, that doesn't. I'm just learning, by the way, this whole exciting world of electronics. And oh, I know what I got to do. I know. No, don't give me any clues. I know what I've got to do. There we go, like that. See the way it works? It's just something fantastic. I'm going to get better at this as the semester goes on. I know I have got to put it back, and now I go like that. Oh man, I'm just no good. Okay, I'll practice every night for 10 minutes until I get this right. I'll roll my R's to improve my Italian. Okay, so that's a nice little pattern, isn't it? So I know what I was doing. I wanted to give you the name of a dead European, and Auguste Comte. And he, a philosopher of the, what century is it? 17th century? Where's it? Do we know? I'm getting confirmed on that. 17th century. Called sociology the queen of the sciences. And he meant that in a positive way, that sociology is the centerpiece of all of these other disciplines. Because sociology, after all, is about human beings, and it is about human beings interacting together. It is about what happens when human beings interact together. So whether it's their economic relationships, their relationships of power as the political scientists take it up, whether it's comes out of their psychology, the fact that they are together and what comes out of that phenomenon is the subject matter of sociology. And that being together kind of thing, what results from that is what also gives rise to all of these other disciplines, which are all about social relations in one form or another, but sociology is the heart of it. So let's start with some sociology. The first part of this course, the heading for it, is the sociological imagination, who we are and how we got here. And I want to give you one way of answering that question. The very term, the sociological imagination, was coined by a professor who was at Columbia University, and he died not so long ago. He died quite young, in fact, but when I was young, he was about to die. So just to give you a sense of the historic periods. And his name was C. Wright Mills, a professor at Columbia University. And he wrote numbers of books, but one book, a very famous book, is called The Sociological Imagination. And that's what you were assigned to read from. And so what I'm going to do right now is speak about, in effect, the Mills version of sociology. It isn't the only one, but it's a favorite and has survived for a long, long time. So what is the sociological imagination? It is virtually like any kind of sociology, the idea that it matters who's around, that we can answer the question. Let's try to be a little bit non-sociological as a way of getting started. If I ask you, why are we here? You might say, well, I had to take something between 11 and 12:15. That would be an answer, because I work after 12:15 and I can't get up. I can't get up early. So that's why I'm here. That's one kind of way of answering it. There are many other ways of answering that question as well, which is that I performed well on tests, and so therefore I was able to get into NYU. My family has a lot of money, and they're able to pay for my tuition at NYU. I love NYU. I came here as a child and was just blown away by a school whose colors were violet and eggshell. That really was a place that I wanted to go to. There are many ways of answering that question of how we got here, and some of those ways fit with the idea of the sociological imagination and how Mills would go about explaining what goes on. The number one thing that Mills would say, I think, is that, or maybe it's the number two, but a critical thing Mills would say is that we have to look beyond the individual and their own sense of how they got to be where they are in life or in geographical space. That you may think that NYU is a groovy school, and that's why you are here. You chose NYU. Maybe you'll even add in that NYU chose you, and so you're here. But much more is going on than that, and that we are all buffeted constantly by the forces of history, the forces of social class, the forces of race, the forces of gender. All of these kinds of factors and forces are shaping all of our behavior, and pretty much all the time, I'll try to convince you, as the semester goes on. And only by understanding how those forces intersect, and in this case, at the level of a particular individual, each of us, can you understand and answer a question like, why are we here? The why are we here is really a question for investigation. The answer is to be found, Mills would say, at the intersection of biography and history. So each of us is living our lives, getting up in the morning. We came out of the womb at an earlier point, and it's been really one meal after another, and one session of sleep after another as we've gone forward. But we haven't gone forward like a little motorboat isolated in the world. Instead, as we've gone forward, all of these other forces are shaping, buffeting, determining, altering that course of our existence. And only by getting a handle on those forces will we understand where we are and why we are where we are. Mills was very oriented toward problems in society. He was oriented toward individual problems, And you will see that Mills did this writing 50, 60 years ago, and his repertoire of problems he speaks of aren't exactly the same problems as we would speak of today, but problems, for example, of race, of illness, of healthcare and its access, of economic deprivation, of unemployment. If you can't get a job, one way of thinking about the fact that you can't get a job is that there's something I've done wrong. I should have not gone to NYU. I certainly should have not majored in sociology. I should have gone to Carnegie Mellon and gotten a degree in engineering, for example. I made the wrong decision, and that's why I'm employed. Or I don't have any real get up and go. I don't have skill. I don't have talent. I can't get up in the morning. That's why I can't get a job. The alternative is to ask what is going on with the national economy these days? Uh, how did that happen? What kinds of political, economic, global forces created the economy we're in right now? How is it that the economy values one kind of job and not another kind of job? I love taking care of small children. I want to be a daycare teacher. Even if I get a job as a daycare teacher, I won't be able to pay rent or eat, attract a mate. I won't be able to do any of those things. How is it that this kind of a job is paid so little compared to, say, being a fighter pilot on a jet plane or being a plumber? How come plumbers make 3 or 4 or 5 times what a daycare teacher makes? Is it something about plumbing that's more important than helping a child develop, or just what? Maybe that's why I can't get a job. Maybe that's why I can't make a living. It's about the structure of the situation and the way these forces have evolved over history such that this is just the way it's going to be. It, just as a small footnote, doctors in countries in which the doctors are primarily women receive lower income than countries in which the doctors are primarily men. So maybe it's not something about doctoring that pays well or doesn't pay well, but it's something about the surrounding society and the way it's emerged over history that determines whether something is going to be good or not going to be good. Individual troubles, which I've given you a few examples of, are public issues. And that's a very important, another idea from C. Wright Mills. People who tend to go around seeing their life as a series of private troubles are missing the boat. They should be seeing the relationship between their private troubles and public issues. That's, I think, the second leg of the Mills argument. And you see, when they do that, when they see that, well, wait a minute, I love children, I'm devoting myself to that. Children are important in society. Well, wait a minute, that should be paid well. Or wait a minute, I'm not getting this job because I'm a woman. Or I'm not getting this job because I'm Hispanic. There's something wrong with that. That then leads to, once you see there's something wrong with that, taking political action. The solution is not to enroll in Kaplan or go to church or synagogue. The answer is in political and collective moral action. I have to join up, and this is the political action. It isn't just that I now go vote for President Obama as opposed to President Bush. It's that I find other people who are similarly situated to me. Men who want to do childcare, African Americans who want to be president of the United States, whatever it might be. I have to link up with people who are in a way in the same predicament I am, caused by the same forces of history and culture and politics and all the rest of it. And we have to become agents for change. We have to organize. We have to be together. Workers of the world, unite. You have nothing to lose but your chains, as Marx said. Or gays of the world, unite. You have nothing to lose but your stigma. Women of the world unite. You have nothing to lose but your indignity and your poverty and whatever else it might be. So now you see a series of things that are interlinked, which is that, and some other punchlines that you get from C. Wright Mills. And that is that the sociologist, if they're following the sociological imagination full force, is engaged. And it is something that not only does the sociologist have the sociological imagination with these multiple steps that I've outlined, but everyone should. It's about citizenship. It's about living a dignified life. You've heard the phrase, the unexamined life is not worth living. This is the non-sociologically examined life. I don't know if Mills would go so far as to say is not worth living, but it would be something like, is a much better life and will create a better world, and not just for some highfalutin moral reason of a better world, but it will create a better life for me if I can get the whole thing organized in a way that is more fulfilling, more liberatory, more equal in its opportunity structures. Everyone will be better off. So this then, the sociological imagination, is a call for political action. And it means that when you have the sociological imagination, whether you're a professional sociologist like I am, or you're a citizen who is a plumber or a childcare worker or a physician, whatever that might be, that you are engaged in the world. You are not just trying to understand the world, you're trying to change the world. And your efforts to understand the world are so that you can change it. You have to be very careful. You have to be very thorough. You have to be very systematic, because you want to try to learn, well, what are the wages, for example, of a child care worker? What happens when we can't attract the right people to that job? What kind of suffering do people experience, both the children and the adults, because of it? How does that work? That it requires systematic scholarship. We're not born with that knowledge. It's not intuitive. So you have to carry out the craft of engaging in systematic observation, systematic data collection, surveys sometimes, like I did when we started this class, to find out what year you were all in. Of course, we do it in much more systematic and careful ways. We worry about sampling, and we have statistical techniques, and we have a lot of fancy stuff we do. But the goal is to then break through and create the kind of knowledge that is needed to generate change. So that is the C. Wright Mills image of what sociology is, or what sociology should be, and what citizenship should be. It's a very grand vision, isn't it? Because it includes history and politics and personal troubles and anxieties and worries and everyone. Sociology is too important to be left to the sociologists. It is everyone's job, and especially in a democratic society where presumably the power to act is distributed on a massive basis. I should tell you that C. Wright Mills wasn't exactly the most important sociologist who ever lived while he was alive. And he had critics. And indeed, it's probably safe to say that a majority of the professional sociologists in the world really do not follow in the C. Wright Mills path. They get some of it, and they think it's kind of cool, this history and biography and all of that resonates with them. But the idea that sociology should have this built-in moral and political role in the world, that's a little more controversial, and not everybody is on board with that. And we're going to be reading you'll be reading from a dead German named here. I'll put his first name is Max, and I've really mucked this up. That's a Weber, Max Weber. It looks like there's a barbecue grill called the Weber, and for some reason we really pronounce this correctly. So people will laugh at you if you say Max Weber. He's German, and we call him Max Weber. And we're going to be reading Max Weber to get the alternative perspective. And some of you will want to read before we meet next time and pick up on your Max Weber. And I'm going to be talking about